Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth. We have a wonderful episode for you tonight. After we check in with our co-hosts, we're going to do our political news roundup and talk about the upcoming midterm elections with our guest, Preece, who's announced he's running for the Democratic nomination to line up against Andy Barr for Kentucky's 6th district. So should be a fun show. Got a lot of stuff coming at you. A really good news roundup that I'm excited to get into. But first, let's check in with our co-hosts. And that's not true. I jumped ahead. Sorry, folks. Are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? Join Progress Kentucky. As you may have heard us say before, we are very, very, very close to 4,000 likes on Facebook. So please go check us out. Like us, invite some friends to like us. Why do we care about Facebook? Is it because we want to make sure Mark Zuckerberg continues to be obscenely wealthy so he too can shoot himself into space? No, it's because that's the platform. That's where humans are. And if we as a nonprofit organization want to talk to folks, we got to have a platform where people are. So share it. Let us get the word out. When you see our content, if you like it, share it. That's kind of what we're looking for. So we know our Commonwealth needs more kernels of truth to call out the propaganda of folks like Mitch, Rand, Massey, Barr, all these folks who are spreading a lot of misinformation. We need the truth. We are hatching a plan to reach out to our neighbors and mobilize folks around the 6th district and around the state to join us, take action. But it's going to take you, it's going to take some resources. So we would like you to help us do that work. And if you're excited about it, make a donation. It doesn't have to be huge, but we have a goal of raising $1,500 for our current organizing project. And we have not hit as many dollars towards that goal as we really would like. So if you can put something in the pot, maybe you got a child tax credit check recently, and you know the future of your kid relies on Kentucky's politics getting fixed. Maybe throw a little our way. Not a lot, a little, not the whole thing. Sure, we're not greedy, but a little something. We'd appreciate it. So we're also looking for more volunteers. That's an easy, free way, although your time is certainly worth something. But yeah, putting some time into the campaign. If you've got some skills you'd like to share, if you like to write, if you like to organize, if you like to spread the word, lots of things you can do to help us out. So that's the story. Join us, join Progress Kentucky. We are, it's pushing on an open door, people. We are excited to have more engagement, more involvement for the effort. So now let's go and check in with our co-hosts. So who are you, where are you, and what does your protest sign say today? And that's the couple of co-hosts we're going to be hearing from. But also you there on the internet, you can share that in the Facebook comments. If you're watching us live on the Facebook, please do share who you are, where you are, what your protest sign says today. So I'm Aaron. I'm actually coming to you. I'm back from vacation, which is really exciting. I had a great time not working and getting around some beautiful spots in the Pacific Northwest. I'm not in the Pacific Northwest today. I'm actually in Indianapolis for a work thing, because that's happening again. That's pretty exciting. And my protest sign says, I think you can read this. Hopefully you can read this. Immigrants and refugees belong here, here being here, wherever this water bottle is, they belong here. And that's me. So how about you, Doug? Dougie Fresh, what you got?
Hi, everybody. I'm in Harrison County. And home of the humongous sunflower field. If you want to have information about that, put your info in the chat and I'll get back to you. It's actually in Bourbon County, but our county judge executive is the one who has that. I've got a couple of protest signs. This is an old one, an oldie but goodie from the 1960s. Hopefully you can see that. You can read that. Okay, the other one that I'll preview tonight is Hopefully you can see that one. Decriminalize marijuana. That's me.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Doug. And then Kimberly Cecil Jones. I don't think we're able to see your sign today, but we can certainly hear what it says.
Well, Aaron, you look wonderful and great with that great tan that you've got. I'm just going to say today I'm in a undisclosed location working on a great story for Kernels of Truth. But my protest sign says today, Republicans may actually be a part of the reptiles because they surely act like it.
The reptile Republicans, for sure. All right, Ken Howell, the man behind the boards. What do you got for us, sir?
There we go. I was on mute. Hey, this is Cal. A lot of confusing looks. I'll have to edit that out from Aaron. Not on the videos from YouTube or anything. This is sort of a repeat from last week. It's not the same sign as I had, but it looks the same. And if Kimberly, she would be impressed by it. I'm sure she could see it. But it says, "Hey, Rand Paul, COVID lies kill," which is just a modification of last week. I just said COVID lies kill, but this one's really for Rand Paul because of what he's doing.
That's a teaser. That's a little teaser for news of the week.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
All right. Well, hey, I'm super thrilled to get back to it, you guys. I did watch some of the show, the shows I missed, not the whole thing, but some great stuff was done, and still proud to be working with y'all on this little effort to spread some truth, push back on some disinformation. And speaking of pushing back on some disinformation, our friend Rand Paul was once again in the news. So last week's worst Politico of the moment, due to his garbage statements about the vaccine, is back at it. And the smackdown was I think legendary. I think it was significant. I think the gloves are off, and Tony Fauci is 100 and a million% done with the junior senator from Kentucky, from our great Commonwealth, who goes out of his way whenever possible to drag our state through the mud. Like, what in the world? When is he going to learn? I don't know if he's going to learn. I don't think he'll ever learn. But I think, the takeaway quote from this exchange, Senator Paul, do not know what you're talking about. Quote from Dr. Anthony Fauci to Dr. Rand Paul. Can we play that clip?
Ja, maar oi, net. En dan vind je, nee, no, some sastro, me, but survival, man, resistance survival, the schmuck funny, I can grab yes, and I never saw, survival, no wonder, no one. Well, beside me, illy, this survival. Says the lie, I'll be running the shoe of it, says the lie, Ralph, yeah, fellow, out the Dutch descend. Surrounds what the we fit at it's no we've been away. There's enough share in it by landing on go to see rich off the neck, saying is dead low. I'm at Nepazok survives Lily Callum City. It's all city on yes, no one. Beside me, Lily Callum City. Hush, there are the little chip off, but straw be ruining at in the innovation or that snimmer up skating the to you that surround with that go Louis Fitz. Oh, Denise, you did get off my nose that all Nessie little guy, but it cost a week. One, I was the yellow chef, This and when I feel I've been cost the week of one on the but net Eric said I often constant yesterday. And we just you knew Sarah and I guess and if he knows so no. Schnuffer need stands it. Yes, the my nip fat scale for all helps does so. With near a few read it. Yes, it's that. Hash you on down it. Sir, knock it off. Yeah, all love and veil. Oh, but in this.
Yeah, can we just say that was something? That was absolutely something. And it's interesting, right? So Rand Paul thinks he's got this score, right? So like, you have lied to Congress because this study was funded, or this, this research was funded, by your agency to the Wuhan lab, and it was clearly gain of function, and no one like knows or cares what gain of function is. Like all of Fauci's people looked at it like, nope, this is not gain of function. We didn't lie. Rand Paul's saying this is totally gain of function. And the reason he is so stuck on that is because he thinks that opens the door for the fact that, look, we actually funded the virus that came back to bite us in the ass, and it's our fault we did that, right? So I think that is where the conspiracies all point. And that's why Rand Paul won't let this lie, right? But, if you listen to the exchange, which of course I'm sure Rand Paul will never use that part of the clip in all of his online fundraising, all his Fire Fauci garbage. It won't be the like, no, I understand that there's no way this research created, the COVID-19 virus. That's not what he's ever going to say, right? He's just going to keep hammering away on this gain of function idea, which has been disputed. This is like two Pinocchios from the Washington Post fact checker. Like everyone knows, everyone should know that what Rand Paul is talking about and barking about is like not accurate. And it's not at all. There's no links between what our research funded and this COVID-19 thing. But Fauci's just clearly done with the guy. And he's, Rand Paul is playing to a base, looking to misinform people, and that's a real problem. So, that's, I think, for me, the key sticking point here. We got to have facts. We gotta be in, the fact that the vaccine has somehow become partisan is a huge problem, right? And, that's not just us saying that. The White House is saying that. The White House this week called out Facebook and others for vaccine misinformation. I think they've mentioned Fox News and they talked to Fox News. It looks like the impact of that kind of public shaming, or, because the president was, I think, very clear and had to walk back his statement a little bit, but saying that misinformation is in fact killing people. But the impact of those strong statements from the White House would maybe be exactly the opposite of what you expect, right? So what's happened is that Fox is getting better to a degree, right? So folks like Steve Doocy, who is super influential morning show guy, he talks about vaccines a lot. We've also seen some of the late night folks or evening folks. So Hannity has come out very clearly to say the vaccines are really important. Everyone needs to get one. We should put politics aside. So that's important. Obviously, Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson are like two different stories, right? Those guys are like leaning into misinformation. They're trying to make it political. They're the exact opposite of what we need to be doing. But Facebook is pushing back and saying, no, we've taken down all sorts of misinformation, but they're not letting people know, how many folks did see that misinformation. I think they're calling it there's like a dozen people who create about 60% of the misinformation. Most of them are still like on the platform, able to share that misinformation, able to spread it. So that's a huge problem. But again, credit where it's due. Rand Paul's a problem. Our senior senator has been consistent. I've got no love lost for Mitch McConnell, but he has been consistently great about pushing vaccines, getting people to understand the importance of it. So why is this so critical? Because it is, people's lives are at stake, right? Kentucky cases are up as they're up all across the country. I think 989 new cases yesterday in Kentucky. So we're heading in the wrong direction. And this vaccine I completely concur with the White House. Vaccine misinformation is killing folks. killing people. We need to get everyone as possible to get vaccinated. We're consistent about that. But again, it shouldn't be about politics. This is just about public health. So that's kind of my take on this. I know other folks would like to weigh in on it. So Doug, is there anything you'd like to say about this kind of current round of Fauci v. Rand and the overall health issues with the vaccine?
I was telling Ken earlier, we need to try to do the pay-per-view with Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci in the ring. I think that would be amazing. And I really think Dr. Fauci would be able to take out some frustration, and perhaps Rand would retire from Congress. Wouldn't that be great?
It would be great. I don't know that it's consistent with the public health message. I think boxing is generally, concussions not a good thing. And look, Fauci's not a young guy, and I want him where he is. So I'm not embracing this idea of the pay-per-view grudge match as much as there's a society that would love to see it. Kimberly, what do you have?
Well, I think that we all know my opinion about Rand Paul. He is utterly useless and an embarrassment to our state time and time again. I mean, I like the idea of the pay-per-view, but we really wouldn't make too much money off of that because A, Dr. Fauci is much more of a man than Rand Paul. 2, Dr. Fauci is a real doctor. 3, Dr. Fauci is a brilliant man and Rand Paul isn't. So I rest my case right there that Rand Paul, he just likes the attention. He likes the media. And what they always say in PR, bad publicity is better than no publicity.
So I guess that brings up an interesting point. Like, should we just ignore Rand Paul? Like, should we hey, don't give him what he wants. He doesn't want the attention. If you look at our, YouTube feed, it's now lousy with Rand Paul acolytes. Like, they love to pick fights with us. Whenever we go on, go after Rand Paul and, try to set the record straight. They love to jump in because they're so just adamant that they are right. Even despite facts, despite independent fact checkers, despite the actual demonstrated research record, they're impervious to the facts and the truth. So should we just ignore it?
No, it's really fun to talk about them. It really is. And I don't feel like I'm gossiping. I'm just telling the truth, but it is so fun because he is just an easy mark.
Absolutely is. Ken, what do you got?
I think if we stop talking about Rand Paul, we would lose half our viewership on YouTube. So, I mean, that's the exciting thing about Rand Paul. But we talked about Rand Paul last week, and he either didn't read or couldn't understand the study he posted about, and that's kind of what we talked about last week. Is that we went through the numbers. And he was wrong. He was changing the facts around. What it was a misrepresentation of what the reality was. Yeah, it was a study of 50,000 people, but there were only 1,000 or so people, under 5,000 people that it was actually. But that's neither here nor there. That was last week. This week, I think if he understood the study that is intent to harm Americans with misinformation, Facebook, social media, and the Senate should ban Rand Paul for spreading lies and misinformation. He should be held accountable because people are dying. People who attack this country should be put in prison. Currently, Rand Paul is not being censored. He's not being canceled. He can post whatever videos or memes he wants to. He's not moderated at all, and this stuff goes viral on his social media, and he's posting 3, 4, 5 times a day, and this stuff catches fire. Same with Thomas Massey, same with Andy Barr. These Republicans are full of outright lies on a regular and consistent basis, And COVID is just one of the items they're talking about. COVID rates are up because of these constant lies. And this is the beginning of what could be a third wave. Hospitals are in duress. They're having a lot of issues with us resurging of the COVID issues. So, I mean, Fox News even requires their employees to get a vaccine, though they push the anti-vax agenda. In order to work for Fox News, you have to be vaccinated if you are going to work in their studio. They must hate their viewers, as far as I can tell. And the larger issue that we face here is that fact-checking political ads in this next 2022 and speech in the next 2022 election on social media and the right-wing entertainment news is I feel like a needed thing. And what can we do about it? I mean, do we deplatform? Do we moderate? Are there fines for spreading the big lie, for spreading lies about COVID, for spreading lies about civil rights, women's rights, infrastructure, economy, the war on drugs, the war on terror, the war on mortality? I mean, we just finished a war in Afghanistan and Iraq, which lasted 20 years, or close to 20 years. And they were based on misinformation and lies. And then environmental lies, like right now, today, I'm smelling wildfires here in Lexington from across the country. I smell the burning of what's going on because of climate change. And they're lying about climate change. So lies about the COVID and the vaccine, to me, is a very deadly attack on America. And I want accountability for Rand Paul and his many lies that hurt America. Rand should be held accountable for his conspiracies that hurt people. That's my soapbox.
And that, folks, was Ken's rant of the week. Well, we do know it's the rant of the week, or it's a rant of the week. So yeah, I think, no disputing, facts matter. Obviously, that's why we do the show, right? So one thing I would just put out there and, set the record straight. I think Fox is not, it's a many layered, cake. It's not a cake. It's, more like, I don't know, it's something you certainly don't want for your birthday, but it's, as we mentioned before, folks like Steve Ducey are doing the right thing on vaccines. Folks like Kennedy are doing the right thing on vaccines, despite doing the wrong thing on so many other things. So it's not like there's a uniform perspective that Fox is pushing out. But I think there are, again, some of their biggest names. Their biggest name is Tucker Carlson, the frozen Swanson meal magnate, who is every man of the people, who wants you to be fed lies on a lot of issues. He's a white nationalist, and he's also a questioning vaccines, right? So this is a guy who's he's killing people. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you are vaccine hesitant and you get your news from Tucker Carlson, you are not going to get the vaccine, right? Unless there's like some equally opposite influence on your life. And it seems at this point our nation is not willing to do the tough things, which is like mandate vaccines. Some employers are mandating them, and that's been legally, that's been challenged, and it's been found to be legally appropriate, especially in a public health setting. But Fox isn't even mandating their employees; they're like incentivizing it, right? So I don't know why all of a sudden like vaccines are a problem. Like polio vaccines were required. My kids are required to have vaccines to go to school. Like, I get it. It makes sense. That's what we do for public health. You mandate the right thing. Why we can't do it now is because it's political, and that is just it's a travesty. So we've gone along on this story. I want to move to a new public health story. Again, a political public health story that I'm really glad one of our best supporters drew to our attention. And I think Doug's got some really important information to share with folks about this one. Doug, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. We're going to be talking about the inmate hepatitis treatments being denied. The question is being locked up a death sentence for inmates with hepatitis now? Debbie Grainer has been on the show, and here's a video on her experience with this important issue.
I was diagnosed with hepatitis C in 1999. I was a regular blood donor, and at that time they started testing blood, and I was found to have elevated liver enzymes and was then diagnosed with hepatitis C. I had never had any of or participated in any of the risky behaviors that so many people associate with contracting Hep C. But I did have occupational exposure, and I believe I had a blood transfusion when I had surgery in 1984, and that was before the blood was safe.
According to a 2016 report, Kentucky has the highest infection rate of hepatitis C. And this is attributed primarily due to intravenous drug use. There are drugs that will cure this disease, but due to the cost, only those with money or exceptionally good insurance can afford the drugs. If you're a prisoner in Kentucky or some other states, including North Carolina, Tennessee, and Michigan, and have Hep C, you may be out of luck. Recently, Andrew Wolfson of the Louisville Courier-Journal reported that a federal appeals court ruling upheld the right of the Kentucky Department of Corrections to ration treatment for hepatitis C by giving it only to prisoners whose liver disease had advanced instead of treating everyone with the Hep C virus. Basically, the majority ruled that Kentucky prison officials don't have to do anything to treat an inmate's infection except sit around and watch it get worse. That's a quote from Greg Besley, a Louisville attorney who represented prisoners in the class action lawsuit. He described the 2-to-1 ruling by the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals panel as horrendous, adding that he would seek a rehearing or petition the U.S. Supreme Court to hear the case. He pointed out that while Hep C is curable, cirrhosis is not. Nonetheless, denying treatment to most prisoners does not constitute cruel and unusual punishment, according to the court. The court ruled the Kentucky Department of Corrections can deny a life-saving medication for inmates because it's expensive. A decision this dissenting judge says will condemn hundreds of prisoners to long-term organ damage and suffering. In the 2-to-1 ruling, the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said Tuesday the department can deny the treatment which cures nearly 100% of patients, but costs $13,000 to $32,000. As of August 2019, the Department of Corrections had identified 1,670 inmates living with the virus, of whom only 159 had received treatment. In short, the department treats only those who have developed cirrhosis. In a sharply worded dissent, Judge Jane Stanch of Nashville said, by flouting the recognized standard of care, the Corrections Department consigns thousands of prisoners with symptomatic chronic HCV to years of additional suffering and irreversible liver scarring. She said by withholding medical treatment until the damage caused by an inmate's chronic Hep C infection has progressed too far to be reversible, Kentucky's rationing plan shocks the conscious and is fundamentally unfair. What is hepatitis? Hepatitis simply means inflammation of the liver. In the case of Hep C, it is caused by a blood-borne virus. It can lead to lifelong infection that leads to fibrosis, which is mild to moderate liver scarring, cirrhosis, liver cancer, liver failure, and death. A Hep C infection is curable. Treatment is easier and shorter than ever before, and it usually entails taking daily tablets for about 12 weeks. Most people who take the newest medication are cured. While Hep C infections are linked to drug use, there are other causes, including a caseworker who is infected with Hep C and infects others, or you receive a piercing or a tattoo with an infected equipment, or perhaps received a blood transfusion or organ transplant before 1992, or you could have been born to a woman with a Hep C infection. And if you were born between 1945 and 1965, you are in the age group with the highest infection rate of Hep C. The bottom line is, what is the value of a life? Do prisoners become less of a human being? What is the cost to treat the disease when it progresses to death? Remember, caught early enough, Hep C is curable. Is this costly medicine another example of drug companies gone wild? Progress Kentucky supports the efforts of those who seek to help make sure that all human beings can receive affordable, life-saving treatment. Would anyone else like to weigh in on this issue?
You absolutely nailed it, Doug. This is, the devaluation of life. It is an indictment of our, for-profit, big pharma, healthcare system, where people who just don't have decent healthcare don't get healthy, right? And the for-profit piece of both our prisons and our big pharmaceutical companies just puts those who don't have the resources just behind the eight ball. And it's tragic. It's wrong. It needs to be addressed. I'm with Judge Vance in terms of the scathing rebuke, but goes to show you how important federal judges are. Once again, this is an issue that the judicial ruling, had it gone a different way, we would have been able to force our state prison program to do the right thing for public health. But because of the folks who are on that bench, because they're like, yeah, of course the for-profit prison system, it makes sense. Of course the for-profit, big pharma system makes sense. We would never challenge that. And our state is, cheapskates and are doing like the least possible for their inmates. And that's, again, just super tragic. Anyone else?
Just a quick mention about federal judges, and who is the person primarily responsible for getting federal judges appointed to the federal benches?
Mitch McConnell?
That would be the president who nominates them, but then the Senate who confirms them. And as we all know, Senator McConnell is most proud of his legacy on judges. What I will say is, thankfully, Senator McConnell is no longer the majority leader. And Chuck Schumer is doing everything he can to speed the process of appointments, looking, I think, to do what he can to match Mitch's record in terms of quick appointments of, but very legally sound individuals and representatives who are in fact more representative of America, right? Who come from diverse backgrounds, who have, life histories of not just, hey, I'm from the country club and I was a member of the Heritage Society, or the Heritage Foundation. So yeah, I'm excited to see where our judiciary goes when it's more representative of the actual people who make up our nation.
Hep C is deadly. I mean, I think it's an unjust form of capital punishment. I mean, that's the thing. It's capital punishment. It's like you get the death penalty for being in prison because like you don't make a ton of money in prison, so it's like impossible for the inmates to pay for this stuff. Making, I think it's 20 cents or something an hour. I mean, to me, it's capital punishment, and these inmates are the Justice Department's responsibility. The justice system is responsible for their health while they are in the care of the system. That's my thought.
I like to ask a question. What if an inmate is on death row, like such as Eddyville, maximum security prison that has death row? Would they be eligible for this expensive medicine?
Well, at this point, no one's eligible for it, Kimberly, whether you're on death row or whether you're just a, average inmate. So that's what that judicial ruling was. So
I think they only have a certain amount of money allocated toward combating that disease, I guess. And once they reach that allocation, it doesn't matter who you are, unless maybe you're in jail for tax evasion or something like that, you might be able to get that treatment.
Yeah, if you can afford it, can you jump right in and pay for it yourself? Is that what you're saying, Doug?
I would say that's the case.
They're not just outright denied. I feel like that's still like, if you're in the justice system, while you are serving your sentence, you get health care from the justice system. It's like there's no other option. There's no
I'm not 100% sure. This is where I'm out of my expertise for sure. So I can't answer that with any certainty. My sense of it is like, if you're affluent, you're probably not in jail for very long. Is I think the general history. And I think you probably could figure it out, but I don't know. And what I will say is our justice system has a lot of problems. This is one of them. And I think we're going to get towards, sharing a little more information about other elements that don't make a lot of sense with our next story, news of the week. Kimberly, you were ahead. This is a story where Kimberly was ahead of the news. And if folks recall, a few, like maybe 2 months ago, we had Reverend Clark Williams on from the People's Campaign to discuss some issues with with marijuana criminal enforcement and disparities there. And Kimberly brought up this issue, and a lot of us were confused because we had not heard about it. But now it is in the news. So Kimberly, want to tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, I love this story because Delta 8 is in the news. And, people are wondering, is it really hemp? Is it a chemically refined substance? The Kentucky State Agriculture Agency, under the leadership of Agricultural Commissioner Ryan Quarles, has issued an opinion that Delta 8 is not a hemp product, leading to a number of state raids on shops that sell the products. In response, the State Hemp Association has filed a suit. And this shows that Ryan Quarles and Dan Cameron, two of our Republican constitutional office holders, have an unreasonable focus on cracking down on hemp and marijuana use, creating crimes which don't exist. And in the case of Attorney General Dan Cameron, using his office to unfairly and unjustly target African Americans in the state. And the ACLU study has found that Black people in Kentucky nearly are 10 times as likely to be arrested and charged with marijuana crimes in comparison to white people, despite this fact that white people are using marijuana at higher rates in Kentucky. So if you would like more information on this particular issue, we have an action alert set up so you can easily share your views with Dan Cameron. And it should be up on the screen, which it is bit.ly/KY marijuana if you are interested. Meanwhile, at the federal level, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has announced an intent to reclassify marijuana as a Schedule III drug, removing it from the Federal Controlled Substance Act, which allows for some legitimate uses. And he would like to legalize it and tax it. Furthermore, the bill would expunge the records of folks who have been arrested for marijuana offenses. And also, I would like to add to this as well that I have been using Delta 8. It is very good for anxiety, to sometimes just relax, and it is not as harmful as alcohol. So, it all goes back to it's a money thing. It really is. It's a money thing. And all across this country, marijuana should be legalized. And hopefully that will be coming very, very soon, because living Black in America, maybe you need a little marijuana. I don't know. Or if you want to be legal in the state of Kentucky, you might need a little Delta 8 just to get by. What are your views on it, Aaron?
I think this is interesting. So the Delta 8 issue, clearly it's been a moneymaker for the kind of hemp industry and the associated businesses, who sell hemp products. Their response was very strong, right? So they're like, no, we are suing about this. We want a temporary injunction. We're going to do everything in our power to fight back against, this opinion that says that Delta 8 is not a hemp derivative or hemp product. And, it'll be interesting to see how the courts sort it out. Again, I'm always very skeptical when it comes to state courts in Kentucky, but every once in a while they surprise me. But I do know that it's a pretty consistent thread from the Republicans here. They are, opposed to this economic activity. They're opposed to the legalization efforts. There's a bill brought up every year for medical marijuana, and it dies every year because Republican leadership will not allow it to advance, even though it'd be a boon for our farmers. So this is an important issue. Glad to see the federal leadership. I'm sure it'll be a challenge to get it through, but I think it's really important that this is an issue we need to focus on. It's one that it's economically good for our state. More and more states around us are legalizing it, and we're kind of left holding the bag. Like, we don't have the same opportunities, and are kind of forcing people into a criminal program or black market stuff, as opposed to just doing what's legally available to our neighbors. So, Ken, what'd you have?
Well, where's Gatewood Galbraith? I mean, that guy, we need another Gatewood, as far as I can tell. He was an amazing, to me, like, he was ahead of his time. The economics of legal marijuana would definitely not only save us from the cost of having these prisons being over capacity, but it's sheerly a racist. To me, it's a racist issue because it's more white people smoke weed, apparently. It's not fair.
I just want to say that, having Delta 8, they have the edibles, they have the brownies, the Rice Krispie treats, they have the pen, the vaporized pen. And when people, use Delta 8, which is, and it is labeled that it is 100% hemp derived, they just found a way to hit the same receptors that marijuana can hit, but it hits it at a much, much lower rate. Okay. And as far as marijuana is concerned, that would cut down a lot on these murders that are happening all over our state. Because why? I've never seen anybody want to shoot up anything, fight. I've never seen anyone want to do diabolical things while smoking marijuana. The most I've seen people do is laugh, have a good time, and raid the refrigerator. So I really don't know what all the problems are about this. And once again, I know it's a money thing.
Oh, absolutely. And the other piece of it there, of course, of the criminal impact is that people are going to smoke weed, and if they are forced to get it from a black drug dealer, black market drugs tend to be that's way more violent than walking up to the dispensary, and there's more of a chance for criminal behavior, and guns are involved. That means more people are getting shot. So yeah, I concur. Doug, what do you got?
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quick and say what I think is fascinating. Ryan Quarles was one of the driving forces behind working with Mitch McConnell to get hemp back on the market. And now that it's back on the market and the Delta 8 situation has come up, hemp producers are suing Ryan Quarles and the Department of Agriculture, and I guess Daniel Cameron, over this ruling that is it's not legal. So I just think that's interesting. I think maybe we need to turn those proceeds over to the horse industry, and then it'll get legalized, and everybody will be happy.
Absolutely. They should totally do that, because everything for the horse industry like totally works out.
Yeah.
But
Who-
I would like to also say this, and this is very, very important, you guys, because we've talked about these drug addictions. We've talked about the overdosing, especially here in Kentucky. But I don't know if all of our listeners and viewers actually know that at the street level of buying weed, marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, Mary Jane back in the day, they are putting fentanyl in basic marijuana that is sold at the street level. And that is extremely dangerous, extremely dangerous. There have been overdoses. I don't know if you guys know this, but there have been overdoses, not just those pills that come from China. And 96% of them, 96% of those pills are most definitely filled with fentanyl. That's where some of your overdoses are coming from, such as DMX and many others. But people are actually dying from buying a bag of weed on the street because it's filled with fentanyl as well. So I just want to put that alert out there that that's what's floating around on the streets of Kentucky.
Yeah, that's super tragic, right? So again, it's this idea like, okay, so it's into a black market, it's not regulated, it's not necessarily safe, and it's something that, we could change that. We could absolutely change that if we had political will, political leadership, and I guess, Doug Price's point is right. If the horse racing industry decides we're going to do it, they could probably get it done, because that seems to be the folks who have the most political sway in Frankfurt and get their way pretty much whatever it is. So, it's sad that, it would have to tie it to gambling, because it wouldn't just be enough to do it for, for the economy, for the farmers, and for the folks who are tragically either dying for this, this fentanyl thing, which, that's certainly ridiculous that, they can't just get safe weed. But, folks who are going into the criminal system, criminal justice system, because they're doing something that's legal in one of our neighbor states. So I think we're going to move on now. Thanks for sharing that story, Kimberly. Delta 8 in the news. Keep an eye on it. There will be more legal maneuvering, I am sure, and opinions will be issued. But now we are really excited to start talking about elections. We love elections here. We think democracy is great. We want more of it. We want more of it in Washington, D.C. We want more of it in Frankfurt. We want more of it here in the streets. And we have got with us somebody who, agrees, democracy is not a spectator sport and is getting into it. So Preece, who has announced that he is running for the Democratic nomination for the Kentucky 6th District. That's, of course, the Bluegrass District. It's centered in Fayette County, but also has 19 other counties in it. So a very far-flung district, and has a very wide range of constituencies, certainly in it. Chris is a scientist. He is an educator. He is a comic book enthusiast, and he is with us right now. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you all?
Doing quite well. Thanks so much for joining us. So what in the world? Why are you crazy enough to decide you want to run for Congress? What started that?
The straw that broke the camel's back was really January 6th. Seeing that, I just knew that I had to do something. Also, all this increased political bipartisanship and anti-science stuff is really making my job harder in the classroom.
That makes a lot of sense. So, I think I'm glad to hear you're a science educator. I think that's something that we need a lot more of. People need to understand science and the scientific process, and that it's not partisan. It's just a process to get to the truth. how does that inform your political views or your political engagement? Why do you think that's a good background to help you be an effective member of Congress?
Well, with science, we are increasingly needing more scientific input to make good decisions, especially with climate change. Here in just the past couple of weeks, we've had major floods in Germany, major floods in China, killing hundreds of people. We've got huge wildfires in the Western U.S. And it's causing a ton of problems everywhere. And we've got to have common sense reforms and investment in infrastructure to really put our best foot forward and protect ourselves from what's coming, as well as reduce our emissions to try not to exacerbate what's already here.
And so why do you think, Andy Barr is not up to that job?
Oh, Andy Barr. He doesn't even have the common sense to vote for a commission to look into January 6th. Terrorists attacked our Capitol, and he's not even willing to vote to have an investigation to look into exactly who did it, what their motives were, and get those people behind bars. Also, we've got a pandemic going on. Lots of people lost their job, and he didn't even vote for the American Rescue Plan, to get those $1,400 checks into people's hands. Here in Kentucky, we've got a huge poverty problem, and getting those $1,400 checks out to people could be the difference of them, living in the apartment or out on the street or with a bunch of other family or whatever. There's a lot of issues in here specifically related to poverty and things. And Andy Barr is just completely out of touch with Kentucky. He has not really had to struggle much in his life in terms of money. Personally, I grew up in Martin County. I'm sure you've heard about the water situation, and it was, there's plenty of poverty there as well. I grew up in a bit of poverty myself. I'm now living in Madison County, teaching here. I know what it's like to live an average life in Kentucky, and I'm here to fight for the common folk that live around here.
That's great. We've definitely touched on the Martin County water issues in the past. We've had the McCoys on, community activists from Martin County, concerned citizens of Martin County. So good to hear that you've got that kind of that awareness and that engagement in that community. And I'm going to throw to my co-host in a minute to ask you the questions as well. But what sets you apart from the previous Democratic challengers? Josh Hicks, Amy McGrath, Nancy Jo Kemper, kind of who all came up short in their races against Andy Barr. What makes you think you can win? Yeah,
well, those people were nice folks. I thought Josh Hicks was going to have a good chance against Andy Barr, but then the pandemic happened, and really for Democrats to win around here, we need boots on the ground, getting people out to vote. That is just an essential thing that requires. So that really hampered his ability. Amy McGrath, she raised a ton of money. And that was great. I would like to have seen her messaging be a little bit better to reach some of the folks here. But in terms of my campaign, really, I see it. I see this a lot of correlations between running and being in the classroom. So there are 42% of eligible voters in Kentucky that did not go out to vote in this historic presidential election. I see that as a student in my class not engaging. And when I see that, I care about my students. I care about the people in this district. I would go over to that student, talk to them, listen to the concerns, and then try to help them out. in any way I can. It may be related to my lesson. It may be something outside of classroom that's the issue. And for the people here, I want to listen to why they're not engaging and try to get them engaged. When I talk to people that I know that are reluctant voters or maybe generally don't vote, I hear like politicians are all corrupt or the lesser of two evils, something like that. Hopefully, I don't think I'm corrupt, and I certainly don't think that I'm evil. And so, I want to go and talk to them and engage them in the voting process. I know that there's a lot of rural areas, in this district. I'm from a rural area. I doubt there's many people that go and ask for their vote and ask them, what they think about what's going on and try to engage them in that way. And I really want to do that. They're important. Being from Appalachia, often, I feel kind of left out. Certainly growing up, I felt, that we were the punching bag sometimes of different jokes or whatever. And, I don't want them to feel that way anymore. That's just not the case. I care. I'm here to listen and do what I can.
That's great. Doug, Kimberly, Ken, do you have a question for Chris?
Which one?
Yeah.
I'm ready. I got a question.
Great, jump in there. Ken.
Andy Barr's not a great debater, as far as I can tell. I very much watched the debates between him and Hicks and him and McGrath, and he's not a great debater. Hicks won based on facts to me. Like, I feel like Hicks won. But Andy's Barr, because of Andy Barr's lies during the debate, I mean, they were outright fact checkable, but it doesn't seem to be, nobody seems to be listening to debates anymore. So if you win the primary, you will be attacked by outright lies on social media, on commercials. How will you combat and dispel the echo chamber of lies about Democrats, the big election lie, and COVID, the lie about COVID? I mean, we talked about that all day. How will you combat and dispel these lies from right-wing media, which seem to feed off of this echo reverberation chamber?
Great question. Really, a part of the campaign is messaging, and I really think that several members of the campaign will need to be a part of looking at that misinformation and immediately addressing it, whether it's creating videos, memes, or whatever it may be, to dispel the misinformation. And certainly in the debates, Josh Hicks did a good job of immediately addressing a lot of the lies that Barr stated and correcting him on them. I think that's a good approach. I will take the same approach when I see something that is wrong. I'll call it out. That kind of stuff can't be a part of the political process. It shouldn't be. It's just poisoning the water of our democracy, and it just has no place. So I'll call it out. I'll have parts of the campaign dedicated to dispelling that information, and also a lot of it comes down to people going up hollers and knocking on doors and talking to folks and really having those one-on-one conversations, and not necessarily just what they see on social media. We get in the echo chambers that we see, and so even if I do have folks really trying to dispel this misinformation, they might not even be seeing it because they're in a completely different area of the internet and not walking down the hall where my stuff is posted. So yeah, that's my plan.
I have a quick follow-up question. Can I ask one thing real quick? Sure. Who's your favorite superhero?
Captain America, certainly in terms of spirit. I also love Captain Planet for saving the planet. Ninja Turtles, which you can see back behind me here, huge fan of them. Those are some of my top superheroes. Yeah.
Thanks, Ken. All right, Doug Preece, you have a question for our guest?
Sure. You've got 20 counties. And of course, that's going to be tough to be in all of the counties. And if there are people who are interested in helping you during this process, how do they get in contact with you? How can they help?
Yeah, they can go to my website, which is chrispreece.org. And there is a Get Engaged tab at the top of the website, and they can go there and click to volunteer or to contact me, and so they can get involved that way.
Yeah. That's great. Get up the holler, folks. Kimberly, what do you got for Chris?
Well, I'm just thank you for being with us today. One of the things that I would like to know is being a Democrat in Kentucky can be hard sometimes. How do you maneuver through that? And what does being a Democrat in Kentucky mean to you?
So I certainly think that there are more of us than we tend to think. We growing up in Martin County, sometimes it felt like I was one of very few in my class that I was in. But really, I think it's going and talking to people face to face, town halls, going up hollers and talking to folks. And I think there's a great meme or video that I've seen where there's two dogs and a fence in between them. And when you move the fence to where they can face one another, they look all friendly and nice. But when you put the fence in between them to where they can't see each other, they're just barking their heads off like crazy. And I think we've got to remove that fence. The fence is really online. When we're online, we can get real nasty and talk nasty to one another. It doesn't feel like there's as much consequences because the person isn't in front of us. And so, when you're talking one-on-one with people, they're much more apt to listen and engage in a conversation instead of just echoing, stuff from their echo chamber. So, I think that is my approach in terms of being a Democrat here, and what it means to me is really I'm somebody who cares about the people in my community and the people in this district, and I want to do things that will help them out. Very at bare bones minimum basic things of making sure people have enough food, making sure they've got health care, in which everyone can have a platform, a relatively level basis to grow from. It's when kids come to school hungry and they didn't get food before they came into class, it's going to be harder to teach them. When they're if they're having to worry about food in the evening, it's going to be harder for them to do their homework. It's very basic things that we need for our life, that we need to make sure that people have ample access to, and that's what it means. That's what being a Democrat means to me, is trying to make sure that people have a pretty level playing field in terms of basic human needs.
That's great. Chris Preece, candidate for the 6th District, looking for that Democratic nomination. And just so folks know, we at Progress Kentucky, we can stay out of primaries. So if there are other candidates that show up, we will give them a chance as well. And hey, if Andy Barr wants to come on our show and share his views of why he really needs to protect the payday loan industry and big banks, we'll hear him out. we might have some tougher questions, but Chris, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck on the campaign trail. And I just one bit of unsolicited advice. Great to see you making the rounds, showing up wherever you can show up, get the word out there, show you care about the community by being in the community. It's wonderful to see you out there. Thanks so much for your effort to get a more responsive democracy for us.
Thanks for showing up to our show, our event. You showed up to the rally we did for the People's Act.
Yeah,
cool.
It was a good protest, and I try to show up and do what I can for people. So that there was a Fayette County Young Dem Service Day. I went there to help make a community garden for a school, and then you all had your Save Your Vote rally. And certainly voting rights is very important. And so I wanted to come and show my support for that.
That's great. And speaking of the action events calendar, we're moving on now. We have got an event coming up. Our friends with the Kentucky Poor People's Campaign, who co-sponsored the Save Your Vote rally that Chris just mentioned. They've got another event coming up. They're also targeting Kentucky's senators. Specifically, what they are working to do is kind of a 4-point push to end the filibuster, to pass all the provisions of the For the People Act, to fully restore the 1965 Voting Rights Act. This would be through the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And 4, to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, which would be a huge raise for folks in Kentucky. And so they are doing a couple of things which folks can find out more about. But in Bowling Green, the Kentucky Poor People's Campaign will gather at Senator Rand Paul's office. Of course, he only has one office in the entire state of Kentucky. That's in Bowling Green. They'll have a protest and an action at 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 noon Eastern Time on Monday, July 26th. Then in Lexington, the Poor People's Campaign will gather at Senator Mitch McConnell's office for protest and action. That'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, July 26th. The Poor People's Campaign is grounded in a fundamental principle of nonviolence. And towards that, they're inviting attendees to the events to attend a nonviolence training before Monday's actions. Trainings are going to be online. There are going to be 2 opportunities to attend: Thursday, July 22nd at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern, or Saturday, July 24th at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. So you can find out more about that event, those events on Facebook, Kentucky PPC. So Kentucky Poor People Campaign, I'm sure you can find it. That is our action events calendar for the week. And now I think Kimberly Cecil Jones is coming on to bring us home. Kimberly Cecil Jones coming on to bring us home, perhaps. Kimberly?
I hear that next week is going to be there's going to be a Doug Price's Right next week. Are you excited about that one, Doug?
Yes, I'm excited about that. I'm kicking around in my head a few ideas and don't have anything just concrete yet, but I'll have something, and you can count on Doug Price is Right.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I love Doug Price is Right. And you guys know I'm operating off of a phone right now, and it kind of froze up on me for a moment. So yes, Doug Price, he will be back bringing us his regular feature, Doug Price is Right. Leave it to Dougie Fresh. He's going to bring it. And Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4, and it is affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, otherwise known as CAVE. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. More information can be found at progresskentucky.org about how to volunteer and support ongoing efforts. Production services and media content are provided by our favorite company, Couchfire Media. Couchfire Media ignites multi-camera, live stream, fiction, narrative, nonfiction, educational, informative, animation, and commercial video production content. For more information about Couchfire Media, it can be found right here on www.couchfiremedia.com. And yes, The Jones Report. It's a weekly, live, national, local talk and conversation show that occurs every Tuesday at 7 p.m. It's hosted by yours truly, myself, Kimberly Cecil Jones, and joined also as my co-host every week, Mike Boyer, Betsy Foster, and of course, you could always catch our great producer, Ken Howe from Couchfire Media there as well. So we always want to say thank you to Nate for the theme songs. You can find more information, and please, please, please go and listen to his music. You will absolutely love it. And you can find it at natosongs.com. That's NATO.com. And this is WLXU 93.9 LP FM, Radio Lex, Lexington, the voice of the people. The views expressed on Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth and our guests are not necessarily the views of Radio Lex or its board of directors. The views expressed on Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth are our own. Hey, everybody. It's been a great show tonight. Thank you to our special guest that was here tonight, Mr. Chris Preece, and always to the best host ever. Well, he's running neck and neck with me. That would be Mr. Aaron Files, and always Mr. Dougie Fresh. Doug Price is with us, and Ken Howe always does the greatest job so we can bring you great content and the way that the show looks. So while you're out and about this week, you know, do something nice for somebody, right? You could do something nice for somebody and it doesn't even cost you a penny, a smile, a compliment. Call a family member you haven't talked to in months. How about calling a friend that you haven't talked to in a couple of years? Make somebody's day. Just do something nice. And until then, we'll see you right here. Same bat channel on Progress Kentucky. And you can catch this show also on the Jones Report radio program, 7 p.m. next Wednesday. Until then, have a great week. Bye.